Unmuted.
Hello, hello. So if anybody can hear us, maybe just quickly let us know in the chat box that you're hearing us all right. I want to make sure everything is going well. Excellent. Thank you, Miriam. Awesome. If during this presentation you find that you're not hearing us very well, let us know. We're as you know, we're two co-presenters here, and I'm hoping our microphone is going to be good enough for both of us. Excellent. Thank you, Catherine. Wow, you're hello from the Sunshine Coast in Australia. My goodness. We're just getting into we're just getting into our summer here in Montreal, Canada. And it's been a beautiful day so far. Very warm. Oh, hello, Jen. Very cool. I think we're going to give it just one more minute and then we're going to get started. What time is in Australia? I think in Australia you're 16 hours ahead. So that'd be 11 a.m. I think, morning time. I thought it was more than 16 hours. 9 a.m. Monday. Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Kind of neat to be talking to the future. Okay, I'm going to get started because it is 7 o'clock and I personally like to get started when on time. I'm going to turn on my camera so you can see me just for a little bit. All right, hello. Staring at a picture of myself. I'm Lisa Rutledge. I'm the dietitian who will be co-hosting this webinar. Thank you to everybody who has logged on today, and hello to anybody who's watching this recording. I am both the moderator and one of the co-hosts, so please bear with me as I put out there a few of the housekeeping items for you. So at the top of your screen, depending if you're watching it from your phone or from a computer, the top part of your screen is going to be a green button. It kind of looks like I guess a chat box. That's where you can write your questions. Will be the easiest spot for us to catch them. I will also be sharing our slide deck with you and turning the camera off so that you can see the slides hopefully better. And then I'll turn my camera back on at the end of the presentation to get through some of the questions. What else? So before we begin, actually, I have a few questions I'd like to throw out to y'all who are watching live. These questions are called a poll, and I have three questions for you just to see who's out there in cyberspace. So I'm going to turn off my camera just for a moment, and I'm going to run my polls. So the first question is, I'm just asking who's out there. What's your main focus of study if you're a student, and if it's your profession, what are you doing as a profession right now? So I see we have a mix of people here today, a lot of food people, dietitians, and people studying in nutrition. We have some fitness instructors. That's amazing. Hi, Adam. Welcome. All right. Excellent. Okay, so we have a nice mix of people today. I'm going to close this poll, and I'm going to ask you another question. And the other question, whoops, is eating. So we're asking who out there right now who's listening, are you practicing mindful eating, intuitive eating, whether you're a fitness person or a nutrition person, you know, if you've heard of these things before, if you're doing them now, we'd love to hear so we can kind of tailor hopefully some of this information to you. So it looks like a lot of you already are either talking about nutrition in terms of mindful intuitive eating or are doing it some of the time, that's great. Some people saying no. That's what we're here for, here to learn. Hi, Nicole, welcome. Okay, and I have one last question. I don't want to take up too much time with these questions. One last polling question. Where is it? Here we go. This is another question similar to the mindful eating, except I'm focusing more on the weight neutral, health at every size. Some people describe it as weight inclusive way of practicing. And that's something that we won't be able to get into too much today, but we'd love to talk about in the future. Wow, awesome. A lot of you guys are practicing it some of the time and often. That's great. Okay, great. Thank you so much for answering those questions. I'm going to turn on my slide deck now, and we can get started with the nitty-gritty information. I will be passing over the microphone to Marla in just a moment, and if you cannot hear her, please let us know in the chat box. All right, so let me introduce myself and then I'll pass it over to Marla. So my name is Lisa. I'm a registered dietitian here in Canada. That's what we use to describe someone who has a bachelor's in nutritional sciences along with what we call stage or a placement of 1 year. We also sometimes use the word nutritionist. We're in the province of Quebec, where nutritionist luckily is a term that we keep for only people who have a degree in dietetics. I work both in the private and the public sector. And in my private practice, as well as my public practice, I make sure that what I speak about kind of encompasses the philosophies of mindful eating, intuitive eating, and health at every size. And that includes when I talk to people about diabetes or heart disease, eating disorders, whether it's with older clients or adults, and what I call weight concern. So as I'm sure a lot of you dietitians out there, perhaps you were lucky enough not to ever have started the traditional way of teaching nutrition and coaching nutrition, but it's taken me, my journey started a few years ago into this whole mindful eating and health at every size approach. And that's what when I speak to my clients, that is the approaches that I take. So that's it for me. I'm going to throw it over to Marla. Marla's going to talk a little bit about willpower now. She'll introduce herself. And if you have any problems, don't forget you can let us know in the chat box. If you have questions as we go, please enter them into again, that button at the top, that green button. Enter in your questions and we will get to them at the end. All right, so I'll pass over Marla.
Hi, I'm Marla. Hi, everyone. And before I get into anything about willpower, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I have a master's in social work and I'm a certified coach. And I also teach new personal trainers how to take a non-expert approach with their clients. Some of the topics that I teach are things like coaching conversations, behavior change, exercise adherence, willpower, and things like intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. I'm not sure if any of you know about these topics, but I also kind of give them strategies for how to address these type of things. And over the past 4 years, while I've been teaching, I've been honing in on my mindful eating approach as well, because I find that I'm always trying to encourage my students to consider this approach, which is actually quite a paradigm shift from our traditional expert approach that we take. So, why mindful eating? Well, for 50 years of science has proven that eating less and exercise weight loss that is sustainable for the long run is enormously complicated, and biology usually wins because individuals typically gain back everything they lost and even more. I don't know if you know this, but only 5% of dieters are able to sustain their weight loss for more than 2 years. And by the way, 2 years is the benchmark we use in science for sustained weight loss. Okay, so I'm wondering, actually, I'm not wondering because I know that some of you are personal trainers. And for those of you who do work as personal trainers, and even those of you who are clients of personal trainers, I'm wondering if you ever ask yourself these questions. How many of you think that it's realistic and or good practice to promise your clients weight loss? Do you ever feel that promising weight loss carries a burden and also a stress for you as a trainer? Do you ever worry that when your clients don't lose weight, and if they don't lose weight, you're going to lose your credibility? Do you tell your clients what they should and should not eat? Do you feel like the police? Do you ever wish that your clients would just focus more on the workout and the benefits of just feeling good? Do you resent that your clients rely on you too much for motivation? And do you wonder how you can motivate them to find their own motivation? Do your clients look at you on how to learn how to be in control? Well, the point of bringing these questions to your attention has to do with a theme that we believe you might experience as a trainer. And this theme is one that's rarely discussed amongst trainers. This is the theme of pressure and unrealistic expectations. Let me ask you something else. Do you think it's your job to be the master and the controller? Well, if I've struck a chord, one of the reasons that we're here today is to offer you a new way of relating to your clients. One that's less about the pressure of making promises that you can't keep, that are highly unrealistic, and they actually don't help your clients discover their own capacities and strengths. So this new way is called, obviously, the mindful eating approach. The wonderful thing about mindful eating is that it helps you discover that you are your own expert and you know what you need. It's a way of living that encourages you to manage your eating and the choices you make. And we discover what we know, what's best for us in the moment, as opposed to being in control and at risk for falling off the wagon. Well, that was my introduction on mindful eating, and I believe that it's really essential for trainers to consider a mindful eating approach. Now I'd like to talk about what I promised you I'd talk about, which is willpower. And I'm thinking that many of you think it's the magical golden egg for everything, including weight loss. I did too once. I used to believe that willpower was that golden egg, especially when I stumbled across this book, which is called Willpower, and it's written by Roy Baumeister, and he's considered to be one of the leading social scientists and social psychologists in North America. Don't know if any of you have seen this book, and I would love to talk quite extensively about it, but for the reason of time constraints today, I can't. But if you do read this book, you'll learn all kinds of really helpful strategies for injecting more willpower into your life, in every area of your life. Willpower, warning voice. In chapter 10, when Roy Baumeister says that if you ever want to lose weight, you should never, never go on a diet. Willpower cannot be used for weight loss. So talking about that aha moment for me, a moment that took me by total surprise, well, that was the moment when I read chapter 10, because let's face it, there is nothing more desired in our society than flat abs. Research shows year after year that losing weight is the most popular New Year's resolution. And year after year, these resolutions are over in no time at all because diets fail. And I'm sure that those of you that work as trainers notice how busy the gyms are in January, and by February and March, they're much less crowded. So what do you attribute this to? Well, let me give you Roy Baumeister's explanation for why diets fail and for why we can't use willpower for weight loss. This is called the Oprah paradox. And I'm sure most of you know that Oprah Winfrey is the most famous dieter in the world. When you think of her, don't you think of someone that personifies success and self-discipline? This woman had a whole team of chefs, coaches, trainers. However, she was never, ever able to sustain her multiple weight loss attempts. On top of that all, Oprah had the external pressure of the whole world watching her. I'm sure that many of you have seen her go on and off diets. She had every possible resource, the so-called best diets, unlimited money, and of course the world's finest professional advice. However, she was not able to prevent all the weight from coming back. And actually, every time Oprah went on a diet, she started at a higher weight than the diet beforehand. So you can only imagine how embarrassed she must have been as that role model in the public eye, failing, talking about being vulnerable. At one point, she made a public statement to address her embarrassment, and she said, "Well, how did I ever let this happen again?" Well, what happened to Oprah is what happens to all of us. After one or two diets, the body starts to fight back, and somewhere along the third or fourth diet, the body goes through the boom and bust cycle, and the body and metabolism ceases to work. The weight stays on and won't budge, even if you are consuming less calories. I'm sure that some of you are familiar with what I'm talking about. This is actually called Basic Biology, Science 101. And Oprah didn't know it then, but I'm sure she knows it now, that this biology factor prevented her from sustaining her weight loss. So biology is our set point, and set point has everything to do with evolution, our evolution as a species. Well, what this means is that when you diet, your body assumes there's a famine, and it hangs on to every fat cell it can. And evolution favored those who could survive famines. It's also important for you to know that our brain and also our metabolism can be likened to a thermostat that adjusts to temperature changes by automatically sending out chemical signals such as cravings and hunger in order to keep the temperature humming at a steady 72 degrees. What this really means is that people with excellent self-control like Oprah can have a hard time controlling their weight. They can use their willpower to thrive at work, at school, in their relationships, in their emotional lives, but they are no more successful than anyone else at keeping weight off. Well, if you're feeling skeptical, Roy Baumeister analyzed dozens of studies of people with high self-control versus low self-control, and he always came to the same conclusion. This is, when diets with or without exercise end, people gain back all their weight, and sometimes even more than when they started their diets. So that's my little blurb on willpower, and now I'm going to turn over the mic to Lisa.
Thank you, Marla. I find it so interesting and important to have different perspectives when we're talking about mindful eating and willpower and weight loss, and we're all here because we want to help our clients. And I find that that's just so interesting to make sure we kind of cover both ends of the spectrum, nutrition as well as exercise or movement. I'd like to just continue talking a little bit about what Marla was saying and describing a little bit about why diets fail. And I think most of us already know that, so I hope I'm not saying too much of what you already know. But there's really two huge components that play a factor in why diets fail. There's a biological pushback, so our biology, our body, the physiology pushes back from any weight loss that we've sustained or that we have or that we're trying to have. There's also a psychological or like this mental pushback that our body has. And these are really important to understand because our clients are going to probably always want, hopefully not, but probably always want to lose weight. And it will be part of our job is to understand why it's not happening or why it's not sustainable. So on the biological side of things, we have appetite hormones that are greatly affected by restriction, by dieting, by low-calorie meal plans, and by any sort of compensatory overeating that happens after we diet. And ultimately, dieting increases our appetite. Dieting increases our taste sensitivity. So we actually taste food more. We actually also smell food at lower molecules in the air. Our metabolism is permanently reduced, and the Biggest Loser study did mention that, as well as others. And we also have a reduced satiety, meaning that we will be eating the same amount of food before our diet, before we've lost weight, and we're actually less satisfied with it. So our body really pushes back from any sort of weight loss. Whether it's what we used to call quote unquote healthy weight loss, slow weight loss, it's any sort of weight change our body doesn't like when it changes. Kind of like what Marla was saying about the thermostat. It likes to keep our weight. Talk about the psychological pushback to dieting. We tend to eat more quickly due to either being mentally deprived or actually physically deprived of calories. And when we eat quickly because we feel deprived, we generally, or maybe we don't always eat past fullness, but it certainly puts us at risk for eating past fullness. We tend to be attracted to richer foods due to the mental deprivation of those foods. We have increased cravings for the foods that perhaps were forbidden on that particular diet. We're often very scared to be hungry and scared of what I call scarcity. So scared of one day having to go back on that diet. It's uncomfortable to be hungry, and many diets, although nowadays they call them lifestyle changes or, eat as much as you want of a certain food, we still end up hungry because we're eating fewer calories. And this can play quite a number on our mental health afterwards. And of course, guilt. Guilt is a huge factor when it comes to emotional eating and overeating and diets and deprivation and meal plans. And trying to diet really kind of increases this shame spiral and the guilt that happens when we eat either foods that were forbidden but are now allowed, or that one day they won't be allowed. So there's this big biological and physiological kind of pushback, as well as psychological, that happens when we diet. Marla mentioned this kind of regulatory system in our body, that this is set point theory that we used to talk a lot about. And there's also something called our appetite regulatory system in our body. And basically, our hunger and our fullness cues are regulated by this very normal system of our body. We are born with the ability to know when to eat and know when to stop. And that means we're basically capable of regulating our caloric intake according to our signals. Our body will tell us when it's time to eat, and our body will tell us when it's time to start slowing down. But the problem is that chronic food restriction or dieting, it really interferes with this regulatory system. It really interferes with these appetite hormones, leptin and ghrelin, and actually increases the likelihood of overeating, whatever that may mean, whether it's clinical binge eating, whether it's emotional eating, whether it's a very, quote unquote binge eating, or eating in large amounts, eating quickly. That when we get in the way of our appetite regulatory system, and we have to learn to kind of step back from that. And unfortunately, I don't know about any of the dietitians online or any of the trainers, but we're kind of taught that we have to tell people how to eat and let them know, what to do, when really we should be stepping back and allowing our clients to explore for themselves those signals coming from the body, which is exactly what mindful eating is. So one thing that, if I haven't mentioned already, is this idea of eating in compensation. So after we diet, after we restrict our calories, sometimes people will, their biology as well as psychology will push us to eat in compensation of either losing the weight or being on eating lower calories than what we need. And this is a quote from Linda Bacon, but compensatory eating after a diet is a direct consequence of dieting itself. And that's really important to remember, because a lot of our clients are going to be blaming themselves for going back to old habits or not being able to maintain their weight, because to maintain their weight, they must eat less. They must be happy with less. And they aren't happy with less because their satiety levels are lower. So this weight loss triggers the biological compensation that the body goes through. So weight loss itself, or attempt at weight loss, really triggers this looking for extra calories to put us back to where we were before the diet. So if we kind of compare dieting mindset with mindful eating mindset, part of the psychology with dieting is that it will trigger this rebellious act from us. A diet will say, I can't have it. Either it's not the right time, it's not the right food, it doesn't fit in with the plan, it's too high in sugar or calories or gluten or whatever. And when we tell ourselves we cannot have something, we generally evoke a reaction of, I want it. And mindful eating really helps to kind of stop that reaction, or that rebellious reaction that we have. And we can kind of cut that down from, I want it, to, well, do I really want it? Because I can have it. And by allowing ourselves to eat all foods, the expression all foods fit. Why is that very helpful? Because when we actually dig deeper and say, well, do I really want it? Is this really what I need right now? Is it really what I want? Is it going to satisfy this particular need? So what does the science say? Well, mindful eating helps us connect to our physical cues of when to start and stop eating. It also puts us, makes us more aware of our psychological cues, or what we sometimes call triggers, that can affect our food decisions. And I have to say, a lot of my clients and a lot of the clients who work with colleagues with similar specialties to myself say that, mindful eating can be a really fresh way to avoid walking down the diet path of disappointment. A lot of our clients will come to us disappointed and frustrated because the traditional diet have never worked. We have to normalize that experience. But also we have to understand there's lots of science behind mindful eating. And the science, when we replace weight obsession, when we replace food obsession or meal plan obsession or obsession with a certain number of calories with listening to our body, it actually improves our clients' nutritional status. It improves their self-worth. It improves their overall well-being, meaning their health. It improves self-care. And we appreciate our body much more than when we're on some sort of restrictive diet. So there's a lot of science behind that. And afterwards, when I send out the recording of this presentation, I will also send out a list of references for a lot of these claims. So for me to understand what something is, I don't know about you, but I sometimes need to understand what it is not. And recently, somebody at a presentation that Marla and I gave recently actually connected a lot with this information. So what is mindful eating? Perhaps we can discuss what it is not for a moment. So mindful eating is not eating everything all the time, erratically, with abandon. Now, ideally, if I have a client who says to me, I don't want any food rules, I'm usually super happy and very excited for that person. But also, mindful eating is not about giving up on health and just doing what you want when you want. It could be that for some people who've been felt like they've been in the diet prison for too long. But it is far more than just that. I like to say the mindful eating is not the raisin exercise. I don't know if any of you out there have heard of the raisin exercise. I have nothing against it. It's basically an exercise that either a dietitian or psychologist or a counselor will walk their client through. They take a raisin, they look at it, they smell it, they lick it, they put it in their mouth. They basically tune into all 5 senses while eating the raisin in order to increase their mindfulness of being in the moment. This is an exercise that can help us be more mindful, but this in itself is not mindful eating. We're not going to take an hour to eat our lunch every single day because we're going to chew each bite 50 million times. Mindful eating is not eating with chopsticks, eating at a timer, filling up on water or salad or soup before a meal. These are ways to slow down how we eat, and these are ways to portion control or control our portions. But this in itself is not mindful eating. And mindful eating, I think, it's really important to know that it is not about being fully aware of what exactly is in your food, where it came from, where it grew, how it was grown. And it's not about avoiding all bad ingredients. It's not about being mindful and doing the right thing. It's about being mindful of your internal signals and what your body and your mind is telling you. So what is mindful eating? I have to say, I use the words mindful eating and intuitive eating a little. I do use them both, and I do know that there's a difference between the two kinds of eating. However, I find sometimes it's semantics in a sense, at least for me. In general, mindful eating is about using our true hunger to determine when we eat and how much we eat. It's using our mind and what we feel for eating to determine what we're eating. It's about knowing what our body needs and what we want to eat. It's not just about fueling the beast or fueling the machine, but it's about using what we want as well as what we need together to decide what and how much I should eat. And then, of course, another huge component is about understanding why you want to eat without being hungry, and understanding our triggers to eating when we're not hungry, and understanding our other needs, being mindful that sometimes emotions and thoughts may push us to want to eat in order to cope with those emotions or thoughts. I'm going to speed through some of these things because it sounds like a lot of you online have already heard of this, and I'd like to get to some of the more. If I'm going too fast, let me know in the chat box. But I hope everybody is still with us, and I'm not speaking too quickly. So before we delve into kind of the steps of mindful eating, I found that it's really important to understand why our clients wouldn't or choose not to listen or hear to their true hunger level, true hunger signals. And for sake of time, I only put hunger versus fullness. So what gets in the way of our clients hearing or wanting to listen to their true hunger? Well, if in the past they've overate because of in reaction to a diet, if they have a history of overeating or binge eating, a lot of our clients are going to be scared to actually want to tune into that true hunger. For some people, it's inconvenient. They have to work through lunch. They don't want to stop their responsibilities and obligations just to eat. Some people on rigid meal plans who are trying to follow specific calorie targets. It's kind of annoying to listen to true hunger when your hunger doesn't fit within your meal plan. If you're hungry at the end of the day and you've eaten all your calories, well, listening to that must be pretty frustrating and scary. Our clients who feel panicked or the absolute need, you know, those clients who are like, oh, I just have to lose weight. I really, really want to lose weight. That can stop our clients from wanting or being able to listen to their true hunger. Of course, diet culture's message that our body can't be trusted is, I find, a very huge one. You know, don't trust your body, especially our clients in larger bodies or abundant bodies, that, you know, you can't be trusted because, quote unquote, obviously you don't know what you're doing because you're in a larger body. I think we all agree that's probably not true, but that's what they're hearing from the media. A lot of my clients, I don't know about you, but a lot of my clients put other people's needs first, or other needs before theirs. So work obligations, family obligations come before their own, and hunger is just something that isn't really a priority. Some of my clients feel ashamed or guilty for eating or for even taking a break. So if you're having a client trying to learn more about mindful eating and they're not really able to listen to those hunger cues, if you can, asking them about some of these things, but also just being aware that these might be coming up. And of course, fear of judgment from others from either being hungry or from eating. I've had clients who didn't want to eat lunch because everybody ate at their desk, and they didn't want their colleagues seeing what they chose to eat, how much they chose to eat, because they received a lot of comments about it. So I thought, for people, if you've never really been judged for what you eat, if you're living in a body that is considered, you know, a healthy or normal BMI, quote unquote, it might be something to explore a little bit more, to be more aware of with clients. So I really enjoy Dr. Michelle May, who runs the amihungry.com website and has tons of books about mindful eating. I really like her mindful eating cycle. So how do mindful eaters eat? What are the questions they ask themselves in order to eat mindfully? And I find it's really important for us as dietitians, as trainers, as RDs to be, or trainers to be, to really understand mindful eating in order to describe it to our clients. And there's more than 5, but there's basically 5 big questions we want to ask ourselves in order to decide what and if and how much we will be eating. With mindful eating, as I'm sure you all know, the emphasis with all these questions, am I hungry? How hungry am I? What shall I eat? How will I eat? How much do I need? We have to approach these questions with very little judgment as possible. So the idea is that we don't judge ourselves on how hungry we are, how much we feel we need to eat, or what we choose to eat, because that really gets in the way of being mindful and enjoying the food. If we don't enjoy food, we don't get much satisfaction from it. So we want to emphasize reducing the client's judgment on their hunger levels, on the food they choose to eat, the quantity they feel they need to eat. We have to reduce judgments of if we do overeat, you know, I screwed it up, I ruined it, I didn't eat mindfully. That's the big kind of underlying theme for mindful eating. Whether your client is a newbie to mindful eating or is someone who started their journey a while back, but the more we judge, the more it's going to be hard to mindfully eat. And of course, judging ourselves or others on body size and weight, these things can make it very difficult to eat mindfully. So if we go through each of these questions a little quickly, but hopefully not too quickly. So of course, I'm sure all of you know one of the first steps of mindful eating is to ask ourselves, take a pause before we eat, before we maybe go to the kitchen, or before we, or into our house. We want to ask ourselves if we are truly hungry. Am I hungry? Being kind of the basic question. And of course, that would require our clients to understand what physical hunger and physical fullness feels like to them. Because if we don't know what it feels like to feel hungry or to feel full, it's going to be really hard to answer that question. So one thing that's very important with mindful eating is that if the answer to this question, am I hungry? If the answer is no, I'm not hungry, we, your client, you and I, we still have the right to eat if we choose to eat anyways. And that's very important because mindful eating is not a set of rules. It is not a set of rules that we have to follow in order to lose weight, in order to be healthy. We're just exploring how we feel. And we still have the right to eat, and allowing ourselves to eat when we're not hungry really reduces the panic that we and our clients will feel when we do go to ask these questions. So of course, not only am I hungry, yes or no, but how hungry am I? That would be kind of question number 2. And a lot of my clients will either use a hunger scale, meaning a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 to 5 is a representation of how hungry they are, 1 meaning starving and 5 meaning, slightly peckish, and then 6 to 10 on a scale being their fullness levels. Some people don't like numbers. Some clients prefer to describe their hunger, and you can either, give them a hunger scale that's already been written up, or they can decide for themselves, what type of, how do I want to describe my levels of hunger? And actually, there's a really great dietitian. Her name is Marcy, R-D, M-A-R-C-I, R-D as in registered dietitian. And she had a great, one of her talks recently, she said, for some clients who are really, really newbies to mindful eating and listening to their bodies, to make it really, really simple with a hunger scale. And her suggestion was keep it to about 4 or 5 categories. So starving, hungry for a snack, hungry for a meal, neutral, full, or uncomfortably full. So I guess that would be 6. And I thought that was really interesting for people who really struggle to say, I'm a 1 on 10, I'm a 5 on 10, or like a snack, that keeping it really simple. Am I hungry for a snack? Am I hungry for a meal? Am I neutral? Am I full? Am I stuffed? I thought that was really interesting. And the idea is that, it's obviously going to be easier for our clients to identify their hunger cues and their fullness cues when they're at the extremes. So when we're starving, it's often easier for our clients to feel starving and to feel overly full or stuffed. But our goal with mindful eating, at least in my mind for my client, is to be able to identify the nuances between snack or meal, small meal or big meal. And not so that they, the idea is not that they keep it within a certain number of calories, but so that they can interpret those and give their body what they need in that moment. One of the reasons a meal plan is so difficult with clients, or telling them a certain number of calories, is because hunger and fullness levels change from day to day, and they change depending on what we eat. Some of the foods that we eat are going to fill us up a lot longer or less long than others. And to be able to, when we eat and what we eat and how much we eat, using hunger and fullness cues is going to be a lot easier than trying to follow a plan that when you're not hungry or not eating right. Next slide. Show. Oh, here we go. 18. Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry about that. So the next question to ask ourselves. Is, what shall I eat? And I like using the word shall rather than should, because our clients should on themselves a lot more than they should. So when we ask ourselves, what shall I eat? We ask ourselves, what do I want? What do I need? And what do I have? And I like the simplicity of that. Again, from Michelle May. What do I want? Do I feel something sweet, salty, crunchy, hot, something protein, something carby? And allowing our clients to decide for themselves how much not how much. It's also very scary. So some clients feel they're tugged towards wanting only bad foods at first, and that is completely normal. We can't get too much into that today. but that is something that's a normal thing that will decrease. Wanting only bad foods or the foods that you've been told in the past are bad or forbidden is very normal. What do I need? Well, we want to be responsible eaters. We want to not just, obviously eating what I want is a great thing. And most clients, when they practice mindful eating for a long enough time, what do I want will be a mix of what their body needs and what their mind needs. But it's also for people who are maybe still in the middle, struggling to say, what do I need? What have I already eaten today? What does my body need? Is there something that I tend to not eat enough of? That can be, for some people, a way to feel still like they're doing the right thing for their body. Although I don't fully agree with that. I think that, eating a cookie, despite it maybe having less nutrition or nutrients in it than, I don't know, hummus and broccoli, I still think that the cookie can still be obviously a very good choice. And then the third question, what do I have? What do I have in the house? What do I have around me? What's on my desk? What's available to me? And using these 3 questions to guide what we should be eating or what we want in that moment is very important. Melding what I want with what I need. So, of course, it's really important to be aware, to be mindful of how our environment, how our emotions, and how our physical state affects our food choices, affects our hunger levels, our appetite levels. And to increase our awareness of who's around us, what's going on around us, are other people eating, are other people choosing different foods than are other people choosing different quantities, and how that affects how we eat is super important, because I think we all know, we and our clients don't just eat because we're hungry and stop when we're full, but the environment, our emotions, and our physical state are really going to affect our choices. All right, so let's see here. So what else? Also, I find it's really interesting afterwards, after we eat, to ask ourselves, how am I feeling mentally and physically after eating a meal or certain foods? And this mindfulness is not only during the meal, but afterwards. So if I ate something, let's say I decided that I was going to be bold and I was going to eat a cookie because that's what I felt for, and I was a little peckish for something sweet and crunchy, so I chose a cookie. Verifying how I feel after I ate that cookie, both mentally and physically, I find is really important. Was it what I expected? Was a cookie as delicious as it looked? Did I choose the right portion for my hunger level? And really reflecting back or looking back after the eating experience to learn from that experience, not to judge myself, but to learn, is really important. All right, now how much food do I need? That's kind of addressed when it comes to the hunger scale. And one thing to remember is that it takes a lot of practice to learn how much food our clients and ourselves we need in certain times of the day, at certain meals with certain foods, because some foods are going to fill me up more and some foods are going to fill me up less. And not only will my hunger levels vary from day to day and meal to meal, but also what I choose to eat, I may have to vary the quantity. So, the food guide, here in Canada, we have a food guide. It's all great. I'm sure whatever country you're coming from, you're listening to, you also have some sort of food guide. But those portions are really just a way to describe food. They're not necessarily portions that are going to be adequate for your hunger at this moment. So determining how hungry we are, perhaps using a hunger scale. Also thinking about logistics. When is the next time I'm going to be eating? How long do I want to be hungry for? Or do I want to get to my next meal slightly hungry or very hungry? And then also observing our thoughts and feelings without judging ourselves. So am I judging myself for thinking that I need 2 hot dogs, but really it has to be 1 because I was told that 1 hot dog is plenty and 2 is too much? And again, it's very important that we avoid feeling guilty or ashamed or upset if we do happen to eat beyond fullness or beyond satisfaction levels, because the idea is to learn from the experience. And if we don't practice learning how much food we need, then it's going to be a long and hard journey into mindful eating without allowing ourselves to, without being too judgmental. All right, so Marla spoke about how weight loss and diets very rarely, I think we all know, rarely work very well. And one of the reasons I always think of mindful eating when we talk about healthy eating and weight loss is because dieting, weight loss, and mindful eating, they're at odds. We cannot really do the two things at once. And I think that's where a lot of us, I don't know about you, but that's where I have a lot of trouble. I had a lot of trouble in the last few years really trying to balance my clients' expectations and desires to lose weight and trying to allow them to explore this other way of thinking. So dieting, weight loss, and mindful eating, they pull us in opposite directions. Mindful eating is telling us to listen to our hunger and listen to our fullness, and dieting is telling us, don't listen to your hunger. You have to follow a plan, ignore what your body's saying, and just do what I say and everything will be fine. So I see our job as helping our clients explore options other than diets and weight loss to feel healthy, to be healthy, and to feel happy. And healthier and happier is something that mindful eating can definitely bring our clients closer to. So one of the questions when I see a client, and I'm kind of switching gears here, I'm switching gears here to talk more about what can we say to our clients? How can we address their desires? I'm probably not alone on this. My clients' desires to lose weight, manage their weight, be healthier, maybe manage diabetes, manage heart disease, manage cholesterol, and this idea of health at every size and mindful eating. So I'm hoping that these questions are useful for you, and you may already be asking them. But when my client says, I'm calling you, I'm seeing you today, I'm talking to you today because I want to lose weight. Of course, I go through my assessment. I ask some more in-depth questions, but I find two really important questions are, what are you hoping to gain by losing weight? Or what are you hoping to gain by changing your body? And I let the client kind of describe what they expect. Oh, I want to lose weight because I want to have more energy. I want to be able to walk up the stairs without huffing and puffing. And I want to be able to play with my grandkids or my kids. And then I acknowledge, okay, great, thanks for sharing that with me. And then I pose a second very important question. What are other ways you think maybe you can achieve these things without waiting for your weight to change? Because we all know that if weight loss is going to happen, it's going to be painfully slow even when it's fast. So helping your clients explore other ways to achieve feeling, what did I mention? Having more energy, walking up the stairs, and playing with their kids. So are there ways we can do those things or work on doing those things without either waiting for weight loss or without relying on weight loss to make those better? And let's take those examples. So having more energy. I'm thinking, if my client, obviously I want to give them room to have their own answers. And some people will say, I've had clients say, oh, well, I don't sleep very well. I have terrible sleep patterns. And I think that's affecting my energy levels. That's really interesting because yes, of course, maybe your weight is playing a role on your energy levels, but maybe there are many other things that are also playing a role. So allowing the client to explore that. And of course, when it comes to energy levels, things like eating less erratically, eating every few hours, eating foods that nourish the brain and the body can help, are all non-weight loss ways we can help our clients have more energy. Maybe even taking a little bit of time for themselves, self-care, taking a break, saying no, not running themselves ragged from 6 a.m. to midnight. That could probably help with energy levels without having to wait for weight loss, because weight loss is not going to solve all their problems. Our clients have been told weight loss will solve their problems, but they will not. It will not. And if you're really interested in learning more, I'd love to have another webinar on that. But Linda Bacon's book, Body Respect, is just a wealth of information about the studies that have shown that weight loss does not help with diabetes or cardiovascular disease. It does not help with blood pressure as much as we thought it did. And we're talking, and I'm only talking diseases, not even other things. So waiting for weight loss, which may not even help with their problems, is something that we have to keep in the back of our minds and even discuss with clients if you feel they're open to it. So somebody mentioned, a client of mine mentioned, I want to be able to walk up the stairs without huffing and puffing. And I'm not a trainer, but my first thought was, well, if you want to increase your cardiovascular fitness, you're going to have to work on your cardiovascular fitness. Your weight easily propel your body upstairs. However, the only way to get better at walking upstairs is to walk upstairs. So saying, yes, you're right, waiting for weight loss, that's right, when you lose weight, it'll be easier. Well, there are a lot of people out there who are not fit in smaller bodies who hop and puff up the stairs. So the idea is not to obviously laugh or put down our clients for their reasons, but to remind them, no one else is doing this, by the way, remind them that there's ways other than weight loss to get them their dreams, to be able to play with their kids. I spoke the other day with a yoga instructor, and we were talking about how a lot of our clients want to be able to get up off the floor to play. They want to be on the floor and play with their kids and get up off the floor easily, because depending on your age, it's a little bit harder to get up off the floor when you're an older person or when you're older than 20. So, and I thought it was really interesting because I thought, well, that's about strength, right? And flexibility, not necessarily about weight. There's lots of bigger body people out there who can easily get up and down off the floor, and weight is not necessarily the biggest factor affecting their ability to get up off the floor. So just kind of really advocating for our clients, or really suggesting that our clients think outside the box, because weight will not solve all their problems. And a few, I think, at least for myself, it's been extremely useful to talk with other dietitians, with other trainers, with other people in the health at every size, mindful eating world, to understand how to approach our clients. And these are some really interesting statements that I read recently, suggestions on how to encourage our clients to think about mindful eating, or also motivational interviewing ways for us as dietitians and fitness trainers and students to be able to bring it up with clients. Because the idea of saying, I have the answer to your problems, it's not weight loss, it's got to be mindful eating, that's not a way to encourage our clients. Obviously, the idea is that we open the discussion to perhaps there are other ways, other better ways to manage our health and our happiness. And a few quotes that I found recently was, if your client is talking about weight loss and you're trying to gear them more towards health, think of something like, it sounds like you spent 15 years of your life doing it this way, dieting, restricting your food, over-exercising. Are you interested in finding out more about a different approach? Rather than saying, I know better than you, I'm the guru, mindful eating puts the guru status back on our clients, but to say, there are other ways to do it. Do you think you'd like to talk about it? And this other quote, this is mindful eating is a different way of managing eating that isn't so restrictive. Would you like me to tell you a little bit more about this? And these ways of kind of having the client say yes. When you ask permission to talk about something and a client says yes, it really opens the doors and allows any sort of resistance to be a little bit less, if not a lot less, than what you would have if you'd said, okay, great, I know how to help you do that. Your weight loss goal is silly, or it's never going to work, or it never has, let's do something else. And really opening the door to that discussion. So I thought we'd maybe quickly talk. I see here I'm running out of time quickly here. And I hope I'm not speaking too quickly. I tend to do that. So here, I love when people kind of give me ideas on how to approach clients and say the tough things. So I've decided maybe you'd also like to hear a few ways to word the really tough questions and tough answers to our clients. So what I would suggest is when you meet with a client, especially for the very first time, asking, how can I help you today? How can I help you today? Versus assuming reasons for the consult. So they may say, your client may say, well, the doctor sent me, or well, obviously look at my size, I want to lose weight. Well, I don't make assumptions about my client. They may want to talk about who knows what today. And just really stepping back from any of that assumptions of my client's a bigger client or my client is a new mom. They obviously must want to lose weight. And really allowing the client to tell their story with their own words. It is so useful for me to hear directly from my client's mouth what they want to talk about, because the words they use to me is going to be hugely important for me to pick up on any sort of disordered eating or desire for weight loss or influence of other people wanting them to lose weight. So I try to listen to, I need to, I have to, so-and-so told me I have to. I've had clients say, I know what to do, but I just can't seem to do it. It's never worked, but maybe this time. I even had a client say to me, describing his diet, it was torture and it worked and I gained it all back. I thought, wow, I literally wrote that down verbatim. if you don't mind. Can I ask you more about that? What do you mean it worked? And of course, if you're not familiar with motivational interviewing, I strongly suggest you get the motivational interviewing book for fitness and health professionals. And if you join our online Facebook community, you'll be able to find a link to that. And it's really a way to learn how to listen and reflect back. Motivational interviewing, part of it is about listening and reflecting back what the client is telling you and the emotions that you hear and the information that you hear, so the client hears it coming not just out of their mouth, but also from you. And really normalizing their experience. And highlighting, it sounds like you've really tried working on reducing binge eating. It sounds like you've really tried hard working on reducing your weight, but it sounds like you're not getting the outcomes you'd hoped for. Am I hearing you right? Is that right? And not only reflecting, obviously, back negative stuff, reflecting the positive stuff. It sounds like you've been trying very, very hard to eat more fruits and vegetables. How do you feel about that? All this hard work, do you feel that you've been successful? So some other questions to ask, or to I guess, while doing an assessment, is obviously understand why your clients want to lose weight. So what does it mean to them when a diet has worked? Because they're here to either see you, not everybody, but I'm assuming you're on this webinar today because a lot of your clients want to lose weight. And understanding what has, quote unquote, worked for them or not worked for them. What were they thinking? What were they living before wanting to go on a diet? So sometimes people's chaotic lives, or lives that parts of it they cannot control, they want to try to take back control of their lives by dieting, by following something. And I'm not a psychologist, but a lot of my clients, say that they're overworked, they're overscheduled, and this is one thing that they can control: their food and their exercise, and for them, hopefully their weight. But it just ultimately becomes more of a frustration because ultimately we cannot control those things 100%. If you have the privilege of talking to your client in a confidential room for an assessment or for follow-ups, obviously understanding their past attempts to control weight is very important. So why did they start a diet? Why do they want to diet now? What happened after the diet was over? What did they try? And really trying to find out any patterns with past attempts. Number of weeks that they could last on it, or the patterns of consequences afterwards. So afterwards, I always end up binging for a few weeks. Or I always started a diet before I went on vacation, and on vacation, I felt like I just lost it. So now vacation, I kind of have, two thoughts about vacation. I love it, but also I'm really scared. And really understanding their past attempts, not in order to find the right answer for them, but to understand how much they've done. A lot of our clients have worked very, very hard at this, and we want to legitimize their hard work. And a quote from Rebecca Scritchfield, I believe it was her, saying here, you can't have a happy ending to an unhappy journey. So a lot of people are dieting to lose weight in order to feel happy, but the journey of dieting and restriction is a very unhappy one. And we, wanting to be a certain weight for happiness, but the journey was just so miserable, it's not going to end well. And of course, something really important to remember is we need to validate our clients' feelings. Of course, they feel like they need to lose weight. Of course, they feel like they want to change their body. Of course, they feel like they're overeating. You're not agreeing with them, but you're saying, in today's world, of course, it's normal to feel pressured into wanting to change your eating or your weight. And again, there's a big difference between validating their desire for weight loss and agreeing with it. Of course, we're all pushed to do detoxes and drink skinny tea and eat paleo and go on these Whole30 stints. I don't know, but even on my Facebook page, on my Facebook feeds, I see it everywhere. I see it on Instagram. I see these ads everywhere. And our clients are seeing the same thing, especially if our clients are in larger bodies. They're going to be stigmatized and discriminated against far more than anybody in a smaller body. And they've probably lived through a lot more than we can understand. So validating, of course. And the idea is just not to say, I don't do weight loss. I don't help people lose weight, but to say, how can your goal is to feel happier and healthier? You know what? There's another way to do that other than going on another diet. If you're wanting to dig deeper with a client, and they said something like, oh, at night I binge, or oh, geez, it's always after dinner where I feel out of control. For me, those are two big words: binge and feeling out of control are two red flags. Oh, I always hurt myself. You're a trainer. Oh, I always had this, injury that always comes back, or I always end up going overboard with my exercise and then not going at all for many, many weeks. You could ask your client, would it be okay if we explored a bit more of what you were saying about hurting yourself in the gym, or would it be okay if we explored a little bit more of what you're talking about when you say binge eating, just so I can get a better understanding of what's going on. I find that if people are willing to share, they really like those deeper questions. Two questions I also really like is understanding what they're already doing and understanding what they feel they should be changing or should be doing. And actually on my assessment form, I have two spots for that. Things I feel I should be doing and things I am already doing. In my mind, kind of reflecting back to the clients all the things they are doing, all the things they're taking care of, reminding them of all their wins. Wow, it sounds like you're doing a lot. You're trying to drink more water, you're bringing more snacks with you, you're taking time to go for a walk at lunchtime. Did I hear all that right? Did I catch all that? And just reflecting back to them all that positive stuff. And then understanding what they feel they should be changing. As they're talking, I just tend to write down, if a client says I should, I think I should, my wife said I should, or I read once that maybe I should be doing this. I kind of write down, keep a little list just to see how long that list is and to see what's on that list to address any myths. If they want to address those myths, like, oh, I should cut out gluten, I should reduce my sugar, or whatever it may be, and just understand how big is this person's should list. And if it's quite large and long, it's problematic. And of course, again, really, really, really important, normalizing their experiences with failed diets and binge eating, whether that be emotional eating, true clinical binge eating, or what we, the layman loosely calls binge eating, to normalize those experiences, because we have remembered that biological pushback from the body to search out food and calories after a diet, as well as all those psychological pushback and components to after a diet seeking out food. So we want to normalize their experiences, and you may be the first and only person to normalize that experience and tell them, hey, that's okay. You've tried your best, and this is potentially why it hasn't worked. You're not alone in this, in feeling like you failed, or the diets have failed you, or you failed the diets. So if I'm going to be ending very, very shortly. Really quickly, if we kind of step back and look outside of the moments we're speaking with our clients and look at our businesses at large, in terms of what to do to be more mindful based, intuitive based eating, or more health at every size. What I have found useful for myself is to tailor my assessment form or any sort of intake form. If you have forms that your clients fill out and you're trying to be body positive, weight neutral, health at every size, mindful eating, intuitive eating, making sure those questions on those intake forms really reflect that. You want to tailor, I love to tailor my assessment form with specific questions so I don't forget to ask them, but also if you find certain questions are really tough to ask because they're intimate, literally writing them down on your intake, on your assessment form, and asking clients and getting used to asking the tougher questions. I find it's really important to be transparent with my new clients about my approach, because when you're trying to niche, and unfortunately I feel like health at every size, body positivity, weight neutrality, mindful eating is a form of a niche in nutrition. I wish it was mainstream, but being transparent to their approach, because and you can decide, I guess, how much or how little you want to divulge to your clients. But I find that it really helps assess that anybody who is really gung-ho on a meal plan. I don't want my clients to be frustrated, and I don't want to come away frustrated either. Being as transparent as you want to be. Now, of course, you want to find ways to say it without scaring people off. I don't do diets, I don't do weight loss. We can say something like, in my experience, diets have always brought unhappiness, unhealthiness, and frustration to my clients. So I've decided I've pivoted my business in order to connect better with clients and to understand their problems at a deeper level. And of course, you want to be really aware of what's in your waiting room. What are the resources you're handing out? What are the words you use? And I'd love to, again, have a whole other webinar on the words and the language we use when talking to our clients. So as a dietitian, there's lots of resources I can give out, from the Dairy Farmers of Canada to the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada. But a lot of these things talk about weight loss. And if I'm saying on one hand, weight loss is not going to answer your questions, but I'm giving out resources that say exactly that. them or I create my own resources. In your waiting room, if you have magazines that promote diets and fashion magazines, if you work at a gym and you have posters on the wall of only one type of body, lean, small bodies, or I guess they're called Fitspo, so fitness inspiration posters saying, you're not done when it hurts, you're done your workout when you're done, or whatever it is. Those inspirations to have people to push past their mindfulness, I find is really not helpful for our clients. So I'd like to, and I'm going to end kind of abruptly, I'd like to invite you all to join our online community. We have both a Facebook support group. It's a closed group to any sort of student studying fitness or nutrition, of course, any dietitian, any fitness instructor out there, any counselor, psychologist. We have created a group where we address questions that our members have, where we promote other projects that we're doing, other webinars that we'll be having, other Facebook, we'll be doing some Facebook Live events and videos as well. That's a place where you'll be able to find a lot of the resources. And then if you go to my website, which is custom-nutrition.com, and you go to the page /fitness-trainers, you can download references and tools that will help you in your business and in your practice. And those are two resources that we're hoping to really grow here in order to help support, because as I said earlier, I found, and I'm sure Marla agrees, so much support, and we feel like such outsiders sometimes in the health and fitness and nutrition world talking about this non-diet approach, that it's so nice to be able to connect with other people, ask questions, and learn about health at every size, weight neutrality. So for those of you who said you don't know what health at every size, weight neutrality, mindful eating is, jump on, search our Facebook page, Mindful Movement and Eating Support for Fitness and Health Professionals, and ask to join, and we'd love to continue the conversation. So I was kind of I feel like I was talking very quickly, jumping back and forth from different things. I'm going to check if we have any questions. So if you have any questions on what I presented, please do so by using the green button at the top of your screen. And I do notice that we're 6 minutes over time. So if you do have to leave and we're answering questions later, the recording will include the questions. I'm looking here now at I'm looking here at my emails to make sure everybody knows and sent me an email about that. I'm looking quickly here, any questions from our Facebook group. All right, well, if you don't have any questions, I want to thank you so much for logging on and listening to us. Maybe I'll turn on my camera again and I'll shut off my PowerPoint. I'll leave my PowerPoint up. Thank you so much. I'm seeing here right now as we speak, people are joining the Facebook group, and I'm so excited. On that Facebook group, there's also what's called a file. I can share files on this Facebook group. So if there's a resource you're looking for, or if you've heard me speak of a resource, it's probably going to be under the file section of that Facebook group. I see here that someone's asked a question. Great. Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much for the feedback. It's very much appreciated. I'm glad you enjoyed the presentation. Okay. Miriam's asked a question here. I'm going to show you the question, so I'm not the only one. Here we go. The question is, I noticed that many doctors and patients have very high expectations and extremely difficult to undo. And they're frustrated with us in the end. Promotion in a gentler, nuanced way is important. Not always natural to us with our education. Miriam, I don't know if you're a dietitian or a fitness trainer or a student, but I know Marla, who can't be in the shot due to some technical issues, but absolutely, I find it is really difficult to promote this way of thinking when there's doctors and nurses and other dietitians and fitness trainers out there who really don't understand the difference between gentle nutrition or gentler exercise, mindful movement, mindful eating, and who kind of push our clients. It is really hard to undo. I have found a lot of my clients greatly appreciate me being able to give them space and they really enjoy that it's not the same message. It's not the same one-sided message. You've got to lose weight. You have to eat a certain way. You can't trust your body. And I found that when I allow them to explore other options, that they're greatly appreciative. It can be scary for them, so to support them and meet your clients where they're at, but to allow them to say that, these other ways have never worked. They probably never will. And I'm here to support you with that. If I'm the only person in your life supporting you, at least there's one person. If you join our Facebook group, what I'll do is, I don't have the link right now, but there are a few really interesting resources that we can give our clients that kind of guide them through the tough questions with their doctors. And I believe it was the Rudd Center has these sort of documents where your client can actually download a page to give their doctor to say, to help them ask the tougher questions. What would you, if your doctor says you have to lose weight, asking your doctor, what do you tell your skinny clients? What do you tell your thin clients? I find that's been useful for some of my clients. And I know there's other resources, they're just not coming to mind right now. But there's other resources to help give our clients power to say, I don't want to be weighed. I don't want to discuss bariatric surgery. I don't want to have a discussion about how my weight is killing me. And I'm using all these examples because this is what clients have told me. My doctor told me we have to discuss bariatric surgery if I can't get my weight down. And ethically, as a dietitian in Quebec, Canada, I feel very strongly that because we have no way to help people sustain their weight loss, that's unethical to push it. And I'm not beholden to a certain doctor. Like, I feel like I work for my clients. I don't work for the doctor. And the doctor may want something, but science is telling me other things. And my clients, especially if they're really looking for this other way of thinking, I work for my clients and I help them to feel healthier and happier. And weight loss will not bring that. And there's a lot of research with Linda Bacon's amazing books on showing why weight loss does not help with certain diseases, does not help with arthritis, diabetes, heart disease. And the more we allow our clients to explore that, I feel the more they become advocates for themselves. So I'm just going to reread your question because I probably didn't answer it all. Patients have very high expectations, absolutely. Exploring, I guess, what their expectations were, exploring in the past what they've been able to accomplish, not just to be kind of a Debbie Downer, oh boy, you're expecting too much, and just even exploring any of that. In French, it's deuil, the grieving process of giving up on these high expectations is something, but allowing them to say, well, maybe there's other ways to feel awesome. There's other ways to feel great. You may have high expectations for weight loss, but it turns out weight loss won't help with those problems. But you know what? There's many other things that might help as well. Did you have anything to add on that, Marla?
The layers. It takes a really long time to be able to, I don't want to use master this approach, but to really feel or to get your groove. You've got to get your groove, and the groove is different for all of us. What may be important to me in my way of eating and looking at food, my relationship with food, may be very different for someone else. So I think that understanding that the process and learning how to trust yourself and become your own expert takes a really long time, but it's really worth it. I mean, laying down the foundation and then learning different strategies. And I'm not against weight loss. I don't know if it's possible to have weight loss. The science keeps saying it isn't. But perhaps when, we're not at the weight that our body wants to be at, when we've been, not happy with our eating and having binging going on, perhaps when we feel more at peace in ourselves and kind of calmer around food, perhaps we will lose weight, but that's not something that we should ever promise our clients.
I agree with that, obviously, completely. And I find it almost personally unethical to promise any sort of weight loss. And if other health professionals are promising weight loss, or health professionals, to me, it is a sign of either not understanding the science or trying to, in a roundabout way, get clients on their side or push business or make money. Maybe. I know a lot of health professionals want the answers. We want to have the answers for our traditional practitioners is very uncomfortable.
I'm not even sure that traditional practitioners are aware that when somebody diets, whatever they did during that diet needs to be maintained forever. Once you change that whole pattern, then you gain all your weight back. And it's not just the whole set point theory. It's that whole restrictive eating and, having to eat the same way for the rest of your life. And there are people that do that. There are, the outliers, that 5% of people that are able to keep weight off. They kind of, they're not having, in my opinion, a very colorful life because they're just eating almost like it's an intravenous that they're taking. They're getting their nutrients and they don't have much enjoyment around food. And let's face it, life is about, for myself, we have a lot of celebrations. We're always celebrating things and there is that kind of rhythm. So learning how to really go with the rhythm is really important to be able to teach or to share with your clients. And that's something that takes a long time, but it's something worth exploring, not only for them, but for yourselves. I don't know how many of you out there are new to mindful eating for yourselves and what your experiences have been.
It's so important to have your own, to practice it yourself or to start practicing it in order to describe it well to our clients. We are people too, and when we see the bumps in the road with it, but I really like what you said earlier, this idea of as practitioners, as health professionals, instructors, counselors, we need to build up our skills to either talk about mindful eating or to understand our clients' frustrations and how to address them. So that experience that comes with reading about it, but also more importantly, having experience with clients directly is very important. And having your own mindful eating practice or intuitive eating.
Something that's really different, I'm not a registered dietitian or a nutritionist, but the whole idea, because I have been a dieter, but the whole idea about opening what can be Pandora's box about emotions. And not all dietitians are comfortable with that, but I think in order to connect with people, it's that having that important conversation that's essential. If you don't have that conversation, there's no connection. There's no trust. And we're all emotional eaters. It's not bad to be an emotional eater because we all have emotions. So exploring that is really, really key. And that's not something that dietitians are trained to do.
No. So if you're a student out there and you're getting any sort of training on emotions,
a lot of psychology.
It is a lot of psychology. And I think someone recently at a presentation raised their hand and said, we're talking a lot about psychology. I thought I was here to learn about nutrition and mindful eating. And you're like, well, that's what it is.
The psychology of eating.
Exactly. And learning, I found that learning motivational techniques, motivational interviewing techniques, very important. I found listening to my clients very important and working with psychologists really insightful, and even reading books about CBT and DBT, emotional regulation, extremely useful, even though you might not be doing some of those exercises, to just understand how deep it can go. Food issues, relationship with food in the body, and emotions, and how those two things are interrelated. And just because we're only dietitians or only fitness instructors, I find that it's really important to at least have a basic knowledge of emotional regulation, mindful eating, mindful movement is really important to have that discussion and to be able to, I guess, see the red flags when your clients mention something.
Well, there are many clients, there are many people that don't realize that they are eating their emotions. And it's just something that never was in the forefront. It's not something that they were really aware of. So bringing it to their attention that they are perhaps they're making up for their emotions. They're stuffing their emotions down, and they need to come up to the forefront. They need to be discussed. So this is, a whole area that is really important. It's really important to feel comfortable talking to people and letting them tell you what they want to change about themselves. And that's the whole premise with motivational interviewing is when people talk about what they want to change and what they want to be, the research shows that is really what that's called change talk. That will promote change versus you telling them what they need to do. So this is really, the antithesis of the expert approach, which we know has failed miserably. Self-promotion does not work.
Yeah. Which is, I think a huge theme with mindful eating for sure. That traditional approach. Good. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions come in question on my email. So thank you so much, everyone, for participating in your questions. We hope you jump online and join us, and we hope that you can join us next time for our next webinar. Have a great night.